middle, so I'm just trying to check the room and see if everything's still good. So, hi everyone, my name is Namishka, and I should warn you, I'm under a bit of pressure tonight. So my supervisors are here in the crowd today. So yeah, this one performance could affect my career, my reputation, and most importantly, my visa. You may have guessed correctly that I am an Indian, and being an Indian in Perth is actually much better than I thought. Because the moment I stepped into my Uber at the airport, I felt more at home than I did in Mumbai. But of course, coming from a busy and populated city like Mumbai, there were a few culture shocks that I experienced in Perth, such as there being less people on the streets, shops closing down earlier, and the fact that they serve butter chicken. So yeah, another benefit to being an Indian here is that I can talk anything about butter chicken, I can criticize it openly, and no one can fight me. To be honest, I took one taste of that dish over here and I was as disappointed as an Indian parent is when your child does not pursue software engineering. To be honest, I was one of those kids. So yeah, my background is actually in geology, which I pursued back in India. And I know that most people think that this is what geologists do. And it's a good representation. However, when I came last year to Perth to pursue planetary science research as a master's student at Curtin University, I thought that it would be a big jump going from geology to planetary science, which is basically going from studying just about the Earth to other worlds in our solar system. However, in reality, I went from doing this in geology to this in planetary science. And to be more specific, I'm doing this now. So yes, I am studying ice on Mars. No, not at the poles, that's way too obvious, like my accent. But outside of the polar regions, that is ice that's buried underneath the surface of Mars. So I look at images of craters that have exposed this ice and I do some computational work in order to decipher the properties of this ice layer. Or as I would like to call it, ice maybe. Thank you. It took a long time to come up with that. So, at first glance, a cold and dry planet like Mars, you wouldn't expect to find ice there. Just like I didn't expect to find butter chicken in Perth, but here we are. Now, we've sent a lot of missions to Mars, and we do have a sort of an estimate of where to find this water ice. And we've also sent a mission to literally dig up for this water ice. But you may be wondering, you may be asking me, Namishka, what do you mean by water ice? Aren't they the same thing? No, it's not. And no, it's not like saying chai tea. You see, on Mars, there are two types of ices. The first one is dry ice or carbon dioxide ice, which is what you usually find at the poles of Mars. And then the other type of ice is the one that Aussies love to put in their chai. So I know that everybody loves a good expose. Check this one out on butter chicken. But for geologists, a good expose is an impact crater. Now, an impact crater forms when an asteroid or a meteorite strikes the surface of the planet, leaving behind a scar that usually looks like this bowl-shaped feature. Now, when you think about impact craters, you think about extinction of dinosaurs. And you're actually not wrong. Well, trust me, it's coming. So when you also think about dinosaurs, you may be thinking that impact cratering is a thing of the past. But actually, it's very much alive and active process today. not that an asteroid will come and kill us all tomorrow, but that of a SpaceX rocket is more likely. So in the past 20 years, we have discovered around 1,000 new impact crater sites on Mars, out of which 48 of them have excavated ice, which makes up for 4% of this entire impact crater population. Funnily enough, this is also the same percentage of spices I had with me after passing the biosecurity. No wonder the butter chicken tastes weird here. Now, we do know that there are in fact more than 48 sites of ice exposing craters, and let me tell you why. You see, when an ice exposing crater forms, ice is exposed, but it does not just stay there. Water ice is unstable under the current Martian atmosphere, and so instead of just melting, it directly sublimates from a solid stage to a vapor stage, which means that ice fades through time. And so if you're an orbiter that's coming around to click an image of a crater months or weeks after it has been formed, that crater would actually appear ice-free, because most of the ice is vaporized. Just like my dad's retirement fund the moment I stepped here. So the first step in my research is analyzing images. And I look at ice exposing craters, and how far the ice has been thrown from the craters can tell me how much the ice is buried. Oops, sorry, forgot to zoom in. Isn't that pretty? The detail, it's so crystal clear. I mean, you can just see the crater right there. However, not all pictures were like this, so I had to choose some of my best looking ones. And like a loving parent, I gave full attention to my favorites. Not that I can relate, because I'm an only child. Now, in order to recreate the impact cratering process, I use something known as numerical modeling. Now, numerical modeling allows me to hypothesize a situation and say that, hey, if I design a target that looks like this, how would an impact crater look like? And another thing that it allows me is to play around with all the variables of this ice layer, so that I can look into the depth, thickness, and the texture of that ice layer. Now, these questions came very easy to me because those are the same questions I ask when someone serves me a pot of butter chicken. Now, the thing is, the model runs and then it spits out a lot of data. So instead of spending my Friday nights like a normal person, practicing pickup lines at a bar, I'm actually looking at these lines. Yeah, it's okay. We'll get there eventually. And these lines give us pretty looking pictures like this. However, when I compared my models to the images that I just showed you, I realized that my models did not actually match the way the craters look. And so I felt dejected, and I went to my supervisors and I told them about this. They were kind enough and reassured me, saying that I could find good insights despite there being a mismatch. So I worked really hard, I dove deep into literature, and one day I came across a revelation. Because that's exactly what I wrote in my research journal. So the revelation was that my hypothesis of ice being present as a layer on Mars could be wrong. Most likely, ice is present as pieces that's embedded in frozen soil, just like, chocolate chips and a chocolate chip cookie, as that's the nearest Australian reference I could get. But the size of those ice pieces depend on where you are present on the planet. Now, this was my first taste of victory and enlightenment as a master's student, and so I felt like this cool and amazing scientist explaining my theory to my supervisors. But I'm pretty sure as a master's student, I looked to them like this. Now, studying about ice on Mars is important because, like the weather in Perth, Mars is a bit shifty. So Mars tilts every few thousand years, and because of that, there have been multiple ice ages on the planet. more than the ice ages that you've seen in the theaters. And so by studying this ice, it can give us, some insight into the climatic history of Mars. And most importantly, because this ice is made of water and water is tied to life, we could actually find signs of life perfectly preserved in that ice. But the real question is, why is studying ice on Mars important for you and me? Well, I don't know if you've heard, but we are kind of running out on ours. So someone has to go find for alternatives. But the real reason is that when we do send astronauts to Mars, we really require that ice so that once they are there, they can depend less on Earth's resources and sustain themselves. So water ice can be used for various things, such as astronauts drinking water, or maybe using rocket fuel, or perhaps even building a nice Indian restaurant where someone will serve authentic butter chicken and chai. Thank you.
And let's celebrate for you, everyone!